Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee for February 15th. It's 10:01, and we're going to commence the meeting. I'll start with a land acknowledgement that Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. I'd like to welcome everyone here today in the gallery, as well as those who might be watching online. And just to remind everyone to please put your phones to silent. We'll start here with the approval of the minutes. I'd like to call for approval of the January 18th, 2024 minutes. Okay, moved by Vice Chair Purdy and seconded by Councillor Blackburn. Are there any errors or omissions? Okay, I'll call for the question then. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All right, that passes. Thank you. Next, we have approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Madam Clerk, are there any additions or deletions?
There have been no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
Okay, I'll call then for approval of the order of business as presented. Is there Councillor Smith and Councillor Purdy, thank you. That passes. Next, we have business arising out of the minutes. There's none. Call for declaration of conflict of interests. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest this morning? I see everyone shaking their heads, so we'll say no. Motions of reconsideration, there are none. Motions of rescission, none. Consideration of deferred business, none. Notices of tabled matters, there are none. Correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Correspondence, I know that we did receive some correspondence. Madam Clerk, has all the correspondence been received?
Yes, correspondence has been received for item 13.1.2 and has been circulated to all members of the committee.
Thank you. Are there any petitions to be presented this morning?
There are no petitions from the clerk's office.
Okay, and I don't see any members of the committee with petitions either. And presentations, we do not have any presentations today. With that, we're going to move on to public participation. I know we have a couple of people signed up on the speakers list. So I'm going to call out, when I call out your name, I'll invite you to come up to the front here. You will be given 5 minutes to speak. The clerk here has a couple of signs to give you a 30-second warning and a time's up warning to keep us on track. And I just ask that everyone please keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to the chair. After everyone on the list has been given an opportunity to speak, I will call 3 times to ask if there are any additional speakers in the gallery. So to start, we have Bet El Hawari. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I invite you to the front and welcome. It doesn't matter, but the red one, there's a red mic on there.
Oh, the red mic.
There we
red
go.
On the screen.
Yeah, and red means go in these chambers.
Great, thanks. Happy to go first. I'm presenting on item 13.1.2. My name is Betty El Hawari. I am the Executive Director for SWIM Nova Scotia. I've been in my position for over 25 years now, and it is an honor for me to be here today to speak to all of you and to represent our membership. Our membership comprises swimmers, officials, and coaches. And we have a membership across the province of just over 2,300 representatives. We have approximately 40 swim clubs from Yarmouth all the way to Cape Breton and everything in between. Within the HRM, we have 810 swimmers that participate in our programs and utilize HRM-owned and operated facilities on a daily basis. Outside of the HRM, many of our other participants access HRM-owned and operated facilities, not only for competitions, but for regular training, whether that's a training camp over March break or other peak times during the year. Our membership ages between 5 all the way to 90 of all different levels. We not only service competitive swimmers, but we also have a very large non-competitive and recreational user base. Many of our athletes access Centennial Pool, which we're here to chat about today. But aside from Centennial Pool, our priority is to make sure that we have sufficient aquatic facilities within HRM that are accessible and affordable. Over the last 16 years specifically, I have dedicated myself to advocating for a 50-meter pool in HRM. And I have worked closely with HRM staff to make sure that this type of aquatic facility would meet the needs of all community members. So not just Swim Nova Scotia members, but all of the other aquatic user groups, as well as the community, whether that's Learn to Swim or other programs that are offered at aquatic facilities. It's very important to recognize the importance of an aquatic facility on community. In 2017, I had the privilege to work closely with HRM's working group on the aquatic strategy. That was presented to Council in May 2019, and I was very pleased to be able to work alongside key stakeholders in the community, as well as other aquatic leaders from other sports within the province. Subsequently, in March 2023, I started working closely again with HRM staff as they tackled Waymason's motion that we are discussing again from June 2022. On behalf of Swim Nova Scotia, I am very excited about the direction that the report outlines moving forward, and that is to endorse all of these steps to conduct a thorough study of facilities before making any decisions, whether it be the location or the size of the facility. HRM really needs to have an idea, a better idea of the best location to ensure that there is accessibility for everyone. From our perspective, it's not just about the size of the pool. That is very important to us, but it's also the accessibility and the affordability to our members. We want to make sure that we can serve programming to all citizens within HRM and, of course, across the province. Our primary objective remains to ensure that these facilities meet all of our needs. Of course, we want to look ahead to hosting the Canada Games in our province in 2037, but it's also important to recognize that we want to be able to host other national level events, whether it be swimming or other aquatic sports, here in Nova Scotia and in HRM. And that's very important to us, that we try to get something within the next 10 years. Moving forward, I will continue to collaborate closely with HRM staff and offer support and recommendations to ensure that all viable options are explored, whether that is regarding other business models to make sure that there is accessibility and affordability for all. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the continued collaboration with HRM staff and council as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bet. Next on the list, we have Trevor Broomwell. Oh, excuse me, Bet, I missed that. Councillor Smith had a question for you. Sorry.
That's fine, that's fine. Thank you. It's not a hard one, I promise you. So thank you for being here today. I just wonder, the Training and Competition Aquatic Center study components, which is in the report, and you said you collaborated with staff on multiple reports, including this one. Just wondering if you feel, from your end of it, with your vast experience in the swim world, that the components capture what you think is needed to make sure the study answers the questions.
So yes, I believe it does, Lindell, and in speaking with HRM staff as they prepared the report, I feel as though we're all heading in the right direction, and yeah, I'm happy with the collaboration, and I think that we are heading in the right direction, and everything is enclosed in the report.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Bet. Okay, next on the list, Mr. Brumwell. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, good morning, Madam Chair and councillors. I am Trevor Brumwell, and I am speaking on behalf of the Save Centennial Pool Committee. Our committee offers the following comments and observations on the report that is resulting from the motion of June 2022. After a year and a half of study, the staff report does what it was asked to do. It outlines a plan for the replacement of Centennial Pool with a new 50-meter pool. This plan would involve the disposal of Centennial and the loss of this property as a public asset in the center of the city. This is the only option for the future of Centennial Pool considered in that report, because that was what the motion had directed it to do. The Save Centennial Pool Committee has been working for the past 8 months, engaging with the local community, the recreational users, the teams and groups, including Swim Nova Scotia. The feedback that we have received clearly demonstrates the immense value of Centennial Pool to the community. When the future of this public asset is being considered, we believe that all options must be explored. The Save Centennial Pool Committee recommends the option of maintaining Centennial Pool and adding an existing 50-meter pool in HRM. Now, throughout the report, there are several references to when further study is proposed or warranted, that observations are preliminary or further review is required. This indicates the complexity that is before council in determining the future of Centennial Pool. More time is clearly needed, and the proposed training and competition aquatic facility study to investigate other areas of concern and to be investigated and other areas of concern is really necessary. Since the report was directed by the motion to plan for the replacement of Centennial Pool, the other areas of concern were not considered. The report was focused on short-term and does not look at the long-term planning of Centennial as a public facility. It does not take into account the current and future value of Centennial Pool as a public asset, affordable and accessible in the center of the city. The value of Centennial as a legacy building that is part of our local and our national history has not been given due consideration. HRM has an obligation to provide services and facilities that serve the public now and into the future. The task before this committee regarding the future of Centennial, a public asset, is extremely important and extremely important to get right. History will not be kind to those who allow for the loss of this treasure. Now, the Save Centennial Pool Committee is proposing the following alternatives and is requesting that CPED to advance the studies and investigations that would, number one, explicitly look at adding a new 50-meter pool in HRM, not as a replacement, but in addition to Centennial. And number two, consider not only maintaining Centennial as a public asset, but enhancing the property and the public services that are offered by adding recreational and fitness spaces, exploring integrating services with the new Mi'kmaq Friendship Center, and imagine a new public urban park that extends from the waterfront Cogswell redevelopment area all the way to the Halifax Common, all in the center of the city beside the Citadel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brumwell. I see a question from Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair, again, and thank you for being here. Just wondering if you can clarify two things. So one, and you said in the report that the only option is the disposal of Centennial. Can you just clarify where that is?
I usually have the motion right in front of me most times, but I think it's in the second, in the motion, the actual motion, it's number 2. It's the potential disposal of Centennial Pool.
Okay. But you said in your remarks that this report will cause the disposal of Centennial Pool. So I'm just trying to clarify where you saw that.
I didn't say that in my report. I said that the report did what the motion had directed it to do, and that was to build a replacement pool and consider the disposal of Centennial Pool.
Okay, so I must
So
have just
it's,
missed.
and the label on the report itself is replacement of Centennial Pool. That's the name of the report that you've received. In front of you is the replacement of Centennial Pool. It's, and you can't replace Centennial Pool if you don't dispose of it. What we're asking council or CPED to consider is not replacing Centennial Pool, but adding an additional pool to the overall number of pools in the city. Halifax is a growing city. The population is expanding. The future needs would require more aquatic facilities, not the same number. So looking at the long term and planning for the future, you know, all of the health benefits and benefits that come from the recreational facilities that we have in the center of the city, we need more of those. Municipalities are struggling all across the country in saving their recreational facilities as they age and get older, and they're trying to fund them and keep them going. And so that's what we think of looking forward to the future in long-term goals, is to expand what our growing population and expand the services and the public services that we're offering to our citizens. So I hope that clarifies that.
Yep, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you. So with the conclusion of the speakers list, I will call to those here to see if there's anybody else who would like to come up and address the committee. I see some hands waving. Come on up. Please state your name, your community, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name's Jen Stevenson. Excuse me. I'm here today, as I was the last time, actually not using my own words, and that's because former councillor and the former president of Recreation Nova Scotia, Sheila Fougere, submitted a letter, but it was out of time, and she has asked that it be read today so that it forms part of the public record. So that was in her first paragraph, so I'm not going to read that. I'm going to begin at the second paragraph where it states, I urge the CPED committee and council to consider the February 15th, 2024 report on Centennial Pool replacement with a critical eye. I will be clear that my personal interest is specifically in the recreational use of the pool. I also recognize that the need to undertake planning for a new competitive pool is strategically necessary. In short, the size and configuration of the Centennial Pool offers a broad spectrum of aquatic activities to a range of Halifax citizens, both those who live on the peninsula and those who work in the downtown core. Residents of all ages and abilities participate in activities at the pool, recreational and competitive. It is a fitness facility in both the physical and mental health sense. It is certainly located and within walking distance of thousands of residents. It is also near a bus and bike routes and has limited parking as well. It is singularly unique in this way. The municipality has spent money in the last decade to upgrade locker rooms and other amenities and has just undergone a massive repair that cost taxpayers a considerable sum. The pool hasn't been in better shape in years. I was disappointed to see non-municipal pool facilities included in the discussion and aquatic strategy. Non-municipal facilities like the YMCA and Dalplex serve select populations. They are not available to the public for the same variety and flexibility of use, nor for a comparable cost. The Y and Dalplex first and foremost serve their memberships, and rightly so. Likewise, HRM should prioritize public facilities for HRM citizens. The report seemed to suggest Centennial and Needham pools were somehow comparable facilities on the peninsula. They are not. They are vastly differing facilities, both in size and potential uses. The Centennial Pool is a superior facility. The issue at hand is not a pool on the Halifax Peninsula. It is access to a high-quality, multifaceted pool, public pool on the peninsula. The elephant in the room is the lack of any discussion around potential disposal of the property for, quote, economic development, unquote, purposes, as outlined by Councillors Mason and Smith. It doesn't require much imagination to recognize that the Centennial Pool sits on prime downtown real estate, a developer's dream. Just a few short blocks away, the Cogswell interchange land is being redeveloped and thus should be considered in any discussion of public service versus economic development. Like transit, pools will always be lost leaders. They are services provided by the public purse for the public good. Most importantly, I noticed that the public discussion around the future of this major public facility has been largely by word of mouth. Aquatic groups are not the only pool users. Many individuals freely use our facilities on an individual, non-program basis. Please do not forget members of the general public while determining the future of public facilities. And I'll conclude there. Thank you. That was our former councillor, Sheila Fouchier.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today. Is there anybody else who would like to address the committee? Yep, please come forward, state your name and your community, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Donna Saunier. I'll try not to yell at that. I'm here on behalf of myself, as well as a good friend of mine that has passed about 3 years ago, that I went to school. She's passed away in Toronto, but she was a big user of the Centennial Pool. When we were in high school, she used to tell me about all the clubs. So her name is Tammy Arnold, and I'm Donna Saunier. So on both of us, I would love to see the pool saved. I grew up, I don't live well, I live in a few spots on the peninsula. I jump around, but I am from the north end of Halifax, near Uniacke Square, in Mr. Lindell's area. And being from that area, I can't count the number of times as a child growing up being able to walk down a Centennial Pool and be able to go to an affordable place to swim, which is excellent considering there is a lot of low-income people in the area, as well as a lot of senior citizens. My mother, who is now passed, had lived at Gordon B. Eisner Manor. I still visit a lot of senior citizens who use Centennial Pool and have that. We often forget about the seniors. I have been a caregiver for my mother and for others as well, and I see it every day that they don't often get help. And we need to keep services that are on bus routes. When you're a senior, you're not driving, things get harder. We need to also consider these users and stakeholders in facilities that are for the public and members in the downtown core, particularly on the Halifax side. I want to have my voice heard. As a person who has lived here and stayed here my entire life, I never went out west. I found everything I needed right here, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud to be from Halifax and from Nova Scotia, but I am getting very tired, and it angers me and it bothers me to see a lot of buildings in this city torn down that may not need to be torn down. I've worked as an accountant, as designated accountant for 20 years. I understand development, business, I understand all of those matters, but what I don't like is seeing the failure to look at other users and the community as a whole, including taxpayers. And I would urge the city council as well as the municipal employees to consider these things before they tear another historic building down, before it does. There are not enough. The other thing I see is with immigration. We have all the immigration coming in, but we have not planned for the infrastructure for all the extra citizens that we now have in this city. I see it every day, and I see the problem growing. Housing is only one of the issues. Services is going to be another, and it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. That's from an accountant and a business point of view and just life experience. So we need to sort of stop and look at these things and figure out the best use of assets. I think everyone could agree on that. But I really, it bothers me a lot to see all of these buildings in the city that some could have been saved or modified in some way. And I'm starting to see memories that I have constantly torn down in this city. I know some of them have to be, but some don't. So that really does make me sad, and I do stand up. Lately, this past year, I have considered whether I even want to stay in this province anymore, because it does bother me, and I'm tired of taxpayer dollars that might be wasted or just not enough consensus. So I would love to see, I think we need an extra pool. I have been out to the Clayton Park facility by the library. It's escaping me, but I have been there once and could not get into the pool on a Saturday because it was so busy. If depending on the time of the day, when everyone's off, afternoons, I had to come back another time when it wasn't busy. And that's out on the Clayton Park, which is another booming area that has grown. So the same thing is probably going to happen right on the peninsula as well as we continue to grow, especially with all the developments, the condos, the apartments. We're going to have higher density of people in the city. We are going to need more places to accommodate that. So I would highly suggest we not tear down Centennial Pool, keep it, and then build an additional one, preferably on the peninsula. I often
All
look.
right, thank you. I just want to note your time's up. So
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you for hearing me.
We are very happy you came and spoke with us today. Thank you. I'll see if there are any other speakers in the gallery. Yes, please come forward, state your name, your community, and you'll have 5 minutes. And I just ask when the red sign come up that says time, I'll give you the opportunity to finish your sentence, but I do ask that you wrap it up at that moment. Thank you.
Sure, I think I'm going to be pretty short. Good morning, it's an honor to be before you. My name's Julie Post, and I live on Moran Street in Mr. Smith's district. I love Centennial Pool, so I'm passionate about saving it. My point here is I live car-free, and very happily, I ride my bike or walk everywhere. My neighborhood, when I have friends come, they can't find parking. I'm a member of the Nova Scotia Music Teachers. I'm on the executive committee for the Halifax chapter. I can't have meetings anymore because people can't find parking. So my point is, we have a lot of influx of people. We want to encourage them to have a car-free lifestyle. I imagine a lot of the people moving into the nice condos and apartments in my neighborhood will want to have prime recreational facilities. If they're off the peninsula, these people will, if all the prime activities and wonderful facilities are not on the peninsula, people will want to have cars. That's something we want to consider to promote a car-free lifestyle, keep our beautiful, historic, wonderful pool. It's just such a beautiful pool. It's like a cathedral. I love it. But anyway, my point here is just to add to what other people are saying in support of saving the pool, to consider promoting a car-free lifestyle on the peninsula. Thank you very much.
And thank you. We appreciate you coming to speak with us. Okay, so I'll ask again, are there any other speakers who would, oh, yep, another hand. Please come forward, state your name, your community, and you will have 5 minutes.
Hi. My name is Jill Manderson. I live in the north end of Halifax. I didn't come here planning to speak, but a lot of things I feel like more needs to be said about saving the pool. I'm a senior. I use the pool mostly twice a week. And the class that I go to, an aquasize class, I was wishing we could have had a little video here to show people how much fun and exercise seniors get at that pool several times a week. Like there's 20, often there's hardly room to fit another gray-haired person in the pool. We take up 3 or 4 lanes, there's music, everybody is smiling. It's a very happy and active atmosphere. And in the locker room, I mean, like we're comparing our hip replacement scars. It's one of the very few places where seniors can easily go. You can, if you're fit enough, you can bike there or walk there, and there's a lot of people who live close to it. A lot of people who don't have a lot of money. And if we want to go out to, like, across to the Dartmouth one, I think it's, I don't know, $12 or $13. And that was a few years ago. Same at the one out in Clayton Park. I go to Centennial Pool, I think it just went up to $2.50, $3. Seriously, I mean, that's affordable. Those other places are not affordable. And the other thing that's not affordable for anybody living in my neighborhood that I know of, and I've been there over 25 years, so it's, you know, people who've been there a long time, we thought, you know, I'm sure other people thought down the road, you know, I can sell my house and move into a condo or an apartment. Well, I see those cranes every place. In my neighborhood, if I drive from 3 blocks, I've seen 5 or 10 cranes. They're putting up condos that nobody on my street would be able to buy. So we aren't even going to be able to stay in the neighborhood unless we keep our houses. And if we keep our houses, we will lose a big source of place to stay fit and exercise our new hips and knees and the such. So I'm really a big advocate to save Centennial Pool. You can walk in there from the street and you never take a step up or down, right? You walk in the door, you walk straight through the locker room to the pool. I used to teach at Dal. I went to Dalplex. There's stairs to take the elevator. My God, you'd think you were from another planet. It's so difficult to do that. Same thing at Needham. There's all kinds of stairs and a lot of kids, and it's a very small pool. Yeah. Anyway, and I think it's the same, Dartmouth. Like, these are not, Centennial Pool is on the main floor. It's just right there. You can see outside when you're swimming, the sun comes in. It's really nice. It's a really nice pool. And a lot of us really get a lot of good out of going there. So that's and before I was swimming with the seniors, doing the aquasize, I was going and swimming with the triathletes. A lot of people on the peninsula went and swam with the triathletes because you could become a member of their club for a reasonable amount and get coaching. So now, you know, where those clubs like that, where regular people could go, if Centennial is gone, they're just not, you know, they're just not there. And so I'm encouraging saving Centennial Pool. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, I'll call again. Are there any further speakers? Yes, please come forward. Same routine. State your name, your community, and you'll be given 5 minutes.
My name is Jim Parsons, and I wasn't planning on speaking. I live in the North End, near Bloomfield Street, actually, so I use a pool about 3 times a week. And I wasn't planning on speaking. I noticed that a lot of, and I'm a senior, and I notice a lot of people are talking about how seniors use the pool, and they do, and it's great, and we're important, and we need exercise and things like that. But I also remember, like, there's the kids who use it for this Swim to Survive program. It's like when they're there, there's just a whole mess of them there, like, and they're all learning how to swim to survive in case they fall off a boat or something, or to get inspired because they're really little. It's like someone dumped a bucket of live fish on the deck. They're just flopping everywhere, and they're in the water and they're having a ball, and they're learning how to swim and survive, and that's really important. And then they have these other kids that are learning how to dive, you know, at other times. Yes, we use it. Old people like us use it, and we show up here because kids don't show up here. But kids really benefit from that pool, and there's a lot of them live in that area. Tons of them live in that area. So that's what I have to say. Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming in this morning. Are there any other speakers? Are there any other speakers? Are there any other speakers? Seeing no more speakers, I will figure out what I'm doing next here. Okay, I think that we can move on to information items brought forward. So there's none. And then we have reports. With that, we have 13.1.1, People, Planet, Prosperity, Halifax's Inclusive Economic Strategy, years 3 to 5. With that, I'll invite our CIO, Kathy O'Toole, and Wendy Luther, CEO of Halifax Partnership, to come forward to provide the presentation. And I feel like we've just had a reversal of roles here. Saw you earlier this morning at the investors briefing for the GRTA, and you kindly accommodated my question, so I'm going to welcome you now for your presentation. Nice to have you here. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we have a presentation for you this morning that maybe somebody other than me will bring up. And then the clerk can inform me whether she would like me to advance the slides or whether she would like to do that.
It's just on your desktop there, and then it'll be advanced through your own use.
Excellent. Well, good morning, members of CPED. I'm Wendy Luther, President and CEO of Halifax Partnership, and HRM CAO Kathy O'Toole and I are pleased to be here today to present the years 3 to 5 action plan for People, Planet, Prosperity, Halifax's inclusive economic strategy for 2022 to 2027. As you're aware, in March 2022, Regional Council approved Halifax's new 5-year economic strategy. It included a 15-year vision for GDP and population growth, 3 strategic goals, 17 objectives, and 73 actions. Halifax Partnership and HRM have been advancing the actions with public, private, post-secondary, and community partners over the past 2 years. An update on years 1 to 2 action plan was shared with this committee and Halifax Regional Council in November. Halifax's economic strategy sets out a requirement for a review during the second year, taking into consideration changed economic circumstances, challenges, and new opportunities that should inform the development of the years 3 to 5 action plan. Halifax Partnership and HRM staff led the review process over the past 6 months in consultation with our respective business units and with key partners. As intended, this review process has resulted in a fine-tuning of the economic strategy and the development of an action plan for 2024 to 2027, which we are presenting to you today. Understanding the ways in which the world has changed since April 2022 has been a critical component in developing the years 3 to 5 action plan. Key influences impacting HRM's economic growth include longer-term impacts of the pandemic on supply chains, labor market, and debt repayments, housing availability and affordability, and the pressures of inflation, population growth, and interest rates, labor availability for business, major international events that are impacting economic stability, exports, and the movement of goods into foreign markets, and local emergency events like the wildfires, floods, and hurricanes, which demonstrate the negative impacts climate change is having on our businesses, residents, and infrastructure. On a positive note, continued annual GDP and population growth is forecasted for the upcoming years, and major projects, including shipbuilding and the Cogswell redevelopment, will continue to benefit Halifax's economic and population growth. We know that growth is not without its challenges. The issues facing Halifax are complex and interconnected, and the solutions being developed and actioned in the economic strategy intend to address the interconnection among labor market, housing, transportation, and climate issues. Solving these challenges will require continued and long-term investment, action, and collaboration among all 3 orders of government, the private sector, post-secondary institutions, and our communities working towards shared goals. The strategy review has been informed by engagement with Halifax Partnership and HRM business units and external partners who share in delivery of some of the actions. This includes Discover Halifax, whose rural tourism team member works closely with Halifax Partnership's rural smart business staff, the African Nova Scotia Road to Economic Prosperity Advisory, Elder and Youth Councils, the 9 business improvement districts, and the Halifax Chamber of Commerce. Additionally, we continue to work with business associations in Fall River, Musquodoboit Harbor, Porters Lake, Sheet Harbor, and St. Margaret's Bay, whose perspectives are being sought through regular outreach by the Halifax Partnership Smart Business team. And now I pass the floor to CAO Kathy O'Toole.
Thank you, Wendy. Based on the review of the strategy, it is recommended that the year's 3 to 5 action plan move forward with 17 objectives and 60 actions, which are highly similar to the original set of 73 actions. 4 objectives have been refined with some minor wording changes. Objective 1.1 was revised to remove a COVID-19 reference that is now outdated, and it has been updated to focus on helping businesses build resiliency and respond to and recover from economic challenges and disasters. Minor wording changes were made to objectives 1.2, 1.3, and 1.9, just to add some greater clarity and emphasis. The third objective added the word visit to make Halifax a better place to live, work, and visit. The addition recognizes the key economic influence visitors have on businesses throughout HRM, while also being reflective of the integrated tourism master plan. All of the other objectives are unchanged. The year's 3 to 5 plan includes 60 actions, of which Halifax Partnership leads 17, HRM leads 38, and 5 are co-led. Many of the original 73 actions in the year's 1 to 2 plan remain unchanged and are in progress. Several feature minor wording changes. Some have been combined. 3 are completed and have been removed from the action list. So the 3 completed actions include the creation of a public dashboard to track housing supply indicators, the development of bylaws regarding short-term rentals, and the hosting of the North American Indigenous Games. Actions that were removed were associated with immediate pandemic recovery or were identified as no longer being required or relevant. And 3 entirely new actions have been added and include developing and publishing an African Nova Scotian Index modeled after the Halifax Index, which tracks and reports on economic well-being of the African Nova Scotian community. The second new action is to implement HRM's accessibility strategy, which aims to advance the participation, accessibility, and inclusion of individuals who visit, work, and live in HRM, and implementing the recommendations from HRM's rural recreation strategy, which was passed by Regional Council in January 2024. So the broad suite of measurement metrics that were listed for years 1 and 2 remain appropriate for years 3 through 5 and are therefore unchanged. So the next steps in the review process include seeking a recommendation today from the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee for Regional Council to approve the years 3 to 5 action plan. Pending the committee's recommendation, the action plan will be presented to Halifax Regional Council in March for approval. And once approved, it will be rolled out to partners and the community. And then reporting on progress and keeping the action plan top of mind will occur regularly over the next 3 years. HRM staff are recommending that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend the Regional Council approve Attachment 1 as the action plan for years 3 to 5, which would be 2024 to 2027, of the 5-year People, Planet, Prosperity Halifax Inclusive Economic Strategy for the period 2022 to 2027. And Wendy and I thank you for your attention and welcome any feedback or questions you might have now about the action plan.
Thank you very much. Looking for someone to put the motion on the floor, please. Vice Chair Trish Purdy.
Thank you. I move that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Regional Council approve Attachment 1 of the staff report dated January 25th, 2024, as the action plan for years 3 to 5, 2024 to 2027 of the 5-year People, Planet, Prosperity Halifax's Inclusive Economic Strategy, 2022 to 2027. So moved.
All right, seconded by Councillor Blackburn. Are there any questions from members of the committee? No? Then I will move on to Councillor Mancini. Welcome to CPET. Nice to see you here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's good to be here. Thank you, Wendy and Kathy, for the presentation. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'll ask you these same questions again when we come to Regional Council, because I'm very intrigued by the work of Halifax Partnership. When you're out recruiting for, bringing businesses to HRM, when you get the no answer, that's what I'm trying to learn from. So I'm trying to understand, when you get no, we're not going to bring our operation here. Can you share with us what are those reasons? What's not allowing those companies to make that decision to set up shop here?
Through the chair to Councillor Mancini, thank you for your question. So in part, we work in a very competitive world in the investment attraction space. So we are competing with cities around the world. And in our investment attraction work, for the larger opportunities, we are working in very close partnership with the province, Invest Nova Scotia, and the federal government, Invest in Canada. So sometimes the no is from a broader incentive package. Other jurisdictions are providing more in terms of payroll rebates or other financial incentives, et cetera. Now, that's very much outside of our control at Halifax Partnership and HRM, because we don't have that at the table. What we have is a promise of a very talented workforce, a growing community. Our post-secondary education institutions are a big part of that value proposition, and our broader value proposition that is highlighted in People, Planet, Prosperity of talent, location, cost, which is relevant relative to other jurisdictions, and innovation, and our ocean advantage. So sometimes, Councillor, we don't know why we get a no, but we endeavor to find out. Where we see it most notably is when companies choose to locate here, we get a yes, but they don't grow at pace. So some of that reason is because they can't get the talent here as quickly as possible. Sometimes that is linked to housing. So they're looking, many of the companies that we bring here, a big part of their talent strategy is through intra-company transfer. So they're bringing people from locations around the world here, and their ability to attract that talent here hinges on places for these people to live. So housing shortage plays into that, absolutely. We're making a case about broader infrastructure and quality of life and well-being for the people coming here. So often individuals are coming from much larger urban centers and absolutely expect a certain level of urban transportation, et cetera. So companies are looking at all of those things. And why it's so notable for us now is that we are ascending into another group of competitor cities. So previously, a large company that was looking at Toronto or London, England, or other in New York would not have Halifax on its list. So we were attracting, by and large, smaller players. That has shifted. As we continue to grow, as we've surpassed the 500,000 population mark, we are on these much larger companies' radars. And we are competing against infrastructure availability in these much larger urban centers. So we're now playing in a broader field, and that's why we have access to be considered by more companies, but a broader swath of companies would be looking at us with a more critical eye with some of those larger infrastructure pieces.
My 30 seconds left.
And Councillor, the CEO has something to add.
She's going to eat up my 30 seconds. She's so smart, eh?
Thank you. I did want to add that my perspective, having been CAO for a little over a year now, a couple of the companies that the Greater Halifax Partnership has been engaged in really competitive negotiations where we're facing off against other cities to attract business. One of the things that's fallen to me to explain a few times to those companies now is that our legislative framework here in Nova Scotia is different than in some other jurisdictions. We cannot provide direct financial incentives to private sector businesses, nor can we provide tax breaks to business. So we're a little bit constrained compared to other jurisdictions. Not that I think it would be appropriate for us to be doing those things, but it would be good if we're working with the provincial government through the Halifax Partnership to look at that as a potential area where maybe there needs to be a little bit of consideration on how we enable us to compete with other cities in that respect.
Thank you. I'll come back, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here, Wendy. I think one of the advantages Halifax and HRM have is just that our size has always, not always, but can work for us in that people know each other. There are a lot of people connected in Halifax and working together, and partnership is a big part of that. So I think you and the work that you do are a big part of why Halifax has been so successful in the last number of years. I'm just wondering if you could say a bit more about why the partnership feels the Housing Accelerator Fund is important for HRM to move forward with, why we might need a municipal housing corporation. I think you touched on that, the difficulty of getting people to move here sometimes. And also if you could tell us a little bit about how we're doing on well-being for our residents and what the most important investments council could approve that would improve well-being for our residents.
The chair to Councillor Morse. So I'll start in and invite CEO O'Toole to weigh in because many of the actions in the strategy specifically on housing are HRM actions. So our role in housing through People Planet Prosperity has been really since the beginning noting the importance of housing as an economic development and growth lever. So previous to in previous strategies, the conversation about housing really didn't enter into our work in economic development. It wasn't seen necessarily as a barrier. It just didn't weigh into the conversation. Whereas as we were developing People, Planet, Prosperity, it was clear that in order for us to meet our growth goals and to improve well-being of residents, having adequate housing was absolutely at the fore, and we could no longer talk about GDP and population growth without talking about housing and transportation, inclusivity, and other topics. So we work with hundreds of businesses every year, and the top issue is talent. And one of the top barriers in attracting that talent is adequate housing all throughout HRM. So this is, if you ask the question as we did when we were developing People, Planet, Prosperity, the answer was the same whether we were asking business and community leaders in urban, suburban, or rural HRM. Talent first, followed by housing because the talent needs the housing, and then closely behind transportation. So when Halifax Partnership, when we're thinking about housing, we're thinking about housing for workers, for new grads and newcomers. But we appreciate that the whole continuum of housing is absolutely critical, including the densification of housing, because we appreciate, and we just came from a conversation this morning around transportation and the the JRTA and HRM's plans for transportation infrastructure, is that these new plans only work in a denser environments. And so that's where we work with HRM to to communicate, to educate public and business owners on the importance of the intersectionality between housing, densification, and transportation. And this is what many new residents who are coming from much greater populated cities around the world are expecting. They expect to be able to walk to amenities. They expect to have vibrant communities where they can shop. We heard earlier from a citizen who was talking about making the decision to be carless, and to see HRM reflecting that in zoning changes and building code changes about, what is the next generation, what are youth looking for, what are newcomers looking for, and it's not that everybody is looking to have 2 cars to park out front of their large home. So HRM is already making great strides, I believe, in council in considering other people's needs and wants, and what is good for the environment, and what is sustainable as we continue to grow. CAO.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment to the chair and the committee. I would agree with Wendy that it's investment in housing and infrastructure that supports housing. So transportation network, water and wastewater infrastructure, and also public safety. I think about our investments along the lines of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I'm focused on the bottom of the pyramid, safety and security, for the most part at the moment. And I think when we talk about housing, it's not just housing, it's affordable housing in particular that is of utmost priority at the moment to our community.
Thank you very much. You could come back. Your
I have to come back. Okay, thank you.
time's up, sorry. Councillor Mancini, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's interesting when I asked the question about why aren't we able to close some deals? Why do we get the no? And much of it is beyond our ability, as you guys stated, and including affordable housing, as you just mentioned, as being one of those. When you look at people, planet, prosperity, Planet, our Halifax strategy, our climate strategy is very unique. It's being recognized now, not only in North America, but globally, what we're doing here and how we're paying for it. If you were to weight that on closing the deal, how much of the conversation is about the way we are looking at the environment when you're talking to businesses?
Through the chair to Councillor Mancini, our collective commitment to climate has been a key driver in getting some of these big investments to get to yes. So I can speak about 2 of 3 of them. One, SailGP, you may be familiar, June 1st and 2nd, we're very excited. When the SailGP team was considering a location in Canada, we were leading with our commitment to climate action, Halifax, and People, Planet, Prosperity, because that is how that international sporting syndicate brands themselves. They are moving towards net zero. So the fact that we could not just say that we were committed to climate, but through our plans and our investments are clearly committed to climate, I believe that went a long way in securing that competitive bid. There were cities across Canada competing for that opportunity, first ever in Canada, and we had the proof points behind our words. Another is Diana, an acronym. This is for the NATO Defense Innovation Center, the North American headquarters here in Halifax, and a big part of their work will be around climate impacts and response within NATO's work. The other location that was chosen out of the gate for Europe is between the UK and Estonia. And early in the process, it was noted that Canada was going to be the North American headquarters, but where in Canada was absolutely up for debate. And Halifax and Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada more broadly came out strong, led with things we've already talked about, access to talent, access to post-secondary, and our commitment, demonstrated commitment to climate action, and that how we grow our capabilities in the green economy space will be an advantage for that NATO center to be here.
And just very quickly to close, thank you very much. I mean, that's huge, right? And we need to continue to communicate. There are obvious reasons why we should go on this path of attacking climate change, but there are other reasons too, as you just stated. So that's fantastic. Loved what you said about attracting other organizations and larger organizations. I remember this.
Councillor Mancini, your time's up. If you can wrap up, please.
I am. I remember very quickly the Amazon bid and the Snickers in the boardrooms. Halifax, Amazon bid. You got to be kidding. Well, they're not snickering anymore. So fantastic. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the time.
You're welcome. Seeing no further speakers on the list, if the committee will permit me, I'd speak from the chair. Thank you. Yeah, so just to echo a couple things, Councillor Morris noted, it's the work of Halifax Partnership as well that has kind of really propelled us in our economic development and being looked at, considered by the world on a new level. It's not just crossing a population threshold. I just want to note again that this People Planet Prosperity recently won 4 international awards, 3 gold, 1 silver, by the International Economic Development Council, and I think that is something that collectively we should all be very, very proud about. We talked about housing, and I mean, it's not particular to Halifax, right? I mean, every major urban center across the country is facing similar challenges. So, while of course it is, in every location, a kind of a disadvantage at the moment dealing with our national housing crisis, it's not particular to us. And so at the same time, recognizing that, taking action on housing is important and will give us that advantage. But we're not alone on that. I'd also add, to the CAO's remarks about, housing, transit, and safety, and I appreciate those are the focuses of your focuses at the moment, trying to get those things shored up. I'd also say our advantage is our lifestyle opportunities, and to some of the presentations earlier, the parks and amenities, and recreational opportunities, both, particularly outdoor, but, also the other facilities we have that make us a strong attractor for people to come and live here. It's, there's, kind of, the baseline is, safety, housing, and transit, but the icing on the cake are kind of those additional things that we can offer that are very unique to place. And, just I want to say how important those are to our overall economic strategy. I had another question here, but I've lost it in my notes. I would say also, like, when reading the principles and the values and kind of the word tweaking we have done, one other thing I would love to see is grow. And I know it's stated that, it's stated in the principles, but I think it's really looking at it from an economic perspective. But back to kind of the unique opportunities of being a resident of Halifax is being able to see your life from being a child to being elderly, right? Kind of the 8 to 80 concept, that there's things for you at all stages in your life around people, planet, and prosperity. And it's not just that narrow focus of kind of work and career. And I know that that's your focus is economic development, but I just want to note that I think one of our attractors is ensuring that we really are a city for everyone, inclusive of all age and diversity. So I just wanted to leave us with that, and I don't see any other comments, so I will thank you for your presentation and for all the great work. Oh, yes, the motion is on the floor. We have to vote still. So somebody wants to call for the question. Question's being called. All those in favor? All right. Okay, so that passes. Thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda is item 13.1.2, which is the Centennial Pool Replacement Planning. And with that, I will invite Jacqueline Belsil, Policy Planning Coordinator, and Taylor Deganese, Community Planner, to come forward to provide the presentation. Thank you for joining us. And if you're all ready, or when you're ready, just go ahead. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Community Planning and Economic Development Committee. My name is Jacqueline Belil. I'm a policy coordinator. I'm joined by Taylor Dagenet, a community planner, and we are with the Parks and Recreation in the Policy and Planning Division. And today we will be presenting a report that responds to Regional Council's motion of June 28th, 2022 regarding replacement planning for the Centennial Pool. So over the next 3 slides is the motion that directed the CAO to begin the planning for the replacement of the Centennial Pool, pending a report which outlined 4 matters. The process to undertake the development of a new 50-meter pool that meets Canada Games hosting requirements, the potential disposal of the Centennial Pool site, 1970 Goddingen Street, the prioritization of the Needham Community Centre redevelopment to ensure continued pool access on the peninsula, and an analysis of funding sources to pay for the new pool facility. So to provide a brief bit of background, Council approved the long-term aquatic strategy in May 2019. It addressed our aquatic service provision, which includes indoor pools, both for recreation and for training and competition, outdoor pools, splash pads, and supervised beaches. The strategic goal of the strategy is to facilitate lifelong participation for everyone to enable healthy and active lifestyles through a full range of aquatic facilities. The long-term aquatic strategy also articulates a primary mandate to facilitate safety in and around the water, sport participation in healthy and active lifestyles, and ensure the public has suitable aquatic access. The strategy also acknowledged a secondary mandate to support sport development. And with that secondary mandate, the strategy recommended that planning for a new training and competition facility should begin within 3 to 15 years, and we are now within that time period. So pools used for training and competition are 50 meters in length. There are currently 2 50-meter pools in the municipality. One is the Centennial Pool that was constructed in 1967 for the first Canada Games, which were held in Halifax. The other is the Dalplex Pool at Dalhousie University. Both pools are aging, and both pools have experienced closures in recent years to address needed repairs, but both pools are currently operational. And while both pools are 50 meters in length, the standards for competition facilities have evolved since they were constructed, and neither facility meets today's hosting requirements as set forth by Swimming Canada. The long-term aquatic strategy articulates this in greater detail, but essentially a modern facility must include, among other things, a 50-meter pool, a separate 25-meter warm-up pool, spectator seating for 700, and specialized technical equipment for timing, scorekeeping, and lighting. So I also want to take a moment to talk about our current indoor pool aquatic provision. I want to highlight that it would not be typical for a municipality to develop a training and competition facility independent of a recreational provision, meaning that any future facility would have to have capacity to accommodate not just athletes or athletes in training, but all variety of aquatic recreational programming. The map on the slide shows the municipal pools in blue, indicating, including the East Hants Aquatic Center, given HRM residents can also avail themselves of this facility. It also shows non-municipal pools in orange, and this map can also be found in Attachment C of the staff report. I'll note that the HRM pools are located within the water service boundary, which is illustrated as the area shaded in blue, and this is very important because groundwater supply could not feasibly support a pool of this scale that we're investigating outside the water boundary. The report before CPED today recommends that we continue our planning process with the advancement of a training and competition aquatic facility study. The report identifies that there are 3 scenarios to explore: the renovation of an existing aquatic center, an entirely new aquatic center, and an institutional partnership arrangement. And I'll go through these on the next 3 slides. So when looking at the renovation scenario, while we do have 7 indoor pools in our inventory, the slide only lists 6 candidates. And this is because through preliminary analysis, we know that the Needham site is not of a sufficient size to accommodate a facility of this nature. The study will, however, look very closely at the Centennial site, and it's because of that, in reference to Part B of the motion, it would be premature to consider options for disposal of 1970 Gottingen Street while we're undertaking this work. In examining the existing pools for renovation, there are a number of items that the study will consider, including location, in terms of population distribution, anticipated population growth, and transit availability, site suitability and constraints, such as parking capacity and the presence of wetlands or watercourses that would prohibit adding onto a building, building facility capabilities, such as the current electrical and mechanical systems being able to support additional infrastructure, and high-level initial cost estimates, because it may be that renovating one of our current existing facilities may be more cost-effective than one of the others. In considering scenario 2, which is the development of a new aquatic center that would include both training and competition facilities, as well as recreational components, the study will examine very similar factors as those that would be examined in scenario 1, but it will also look at where our recreational service gaps are emerging due to growth. In scenario 3, the option of a partnership with Dalhousie University will be explored, given that they also have a 50-meter pool that's aging. Advantages to such a partnership include cost sharing, both for the capital expense of the build as well as operational costs. The primary disadvantage to this option would be that pool time must be shared and programming control would need to be negotiated. Another disadvantage compared to the other scenarios is it may not be as helpful in alleviating our growing recreational pressures. But as we mentioned in the report, the growth that's happening in this municipality, regardless of the training and competition facility, we will need to consider new recreational pools as well. So these are the 3 scenarios that will be fully explored through the recommended aquatic study. In terms of costs, in the body of the report, as well as in attachment E, we've tried to provide an understanding of what the magnitude of the cost would be for a new aquatic facility using recent examples from across Canada. These numbers are most relevant to scenario 2, and the range is interesting because it shows projects that were both pre- and post-pandemic, with the most expensive being $114 million. The study will provide cost estimates for all 3 scenarios, as well as explore funding opportunities with other orders of government. And in preparation of the study, there will be community engagement with aquatic stakeholders, and these include existing aquatic facilities that are board-operated, Dalhousie University, the provincial sports organizations for aquatic sports, such as Swim Nova Scotia, and through those organizations, engagement with aquatic athletic clubs. And just before I wrap up, because the motion also included a review of the prioritization of the Needham Community Center, I'll share that the Needham redevelopment is planned to proceed and is included in the capital budget documents that are currently before Council. So with that, this is the final slide. It displays the report recommendation, which, as discussed, is to advance a training and competition aquatic facility study. Thank you, Madam Chair. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. I have Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just had a quick question. So if I'm hearing you correctly, one of the things that you will be studying is options, and those options for keeping Centennial Pool operational are one of the things. So there's really no need for me to put or make an amendment to this motion. You guys are well aware of what the community desire is, and including options for keeping Centennial Pool operational will be part and parcel of what you come back with.
Through the chair to the councillor, that's absolutely correct. We're listening very much to what everyone is saying, and also just from a recreational point of view, we're looking at all of our aquatic facilities in terms of the growing pressures as well.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Councillor Smith, can you put the motion on the floor, please? Thank you.
Thank you. I put that the Community Planning and Economic Development Standing Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to advance a training in competition aquatic facility study as outlined in the staff report dated January 18, 2024, and report back to Regional Council with its findings and recommendations for the development of such a facility. I so move.
Seconded by Councillor Blackburn. Go ahead, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. So there's a lot to cover. I'll try to do it as soon as, or as fast as I can, so I don't have to come back. So one, thank you to staff for the analysis in the report, but also to the public, from the SWIN groups to the users to the organizations who written us in the past 24 hours. We got a ton from the swim club, so thank you for that feedback. So it's really good to see folks engaged in this conversation. Councilor Mason's not here. He's in Ottawa for a Green Municipal Fund, but he wanted me just to pass along that he supports the recommendation in the report. So I'll leave that there. So for me, I also support the recommendations because it's pretty clear, and it was very clear from the discussion early on, that you've always, the wording has always been may and always been possible. It's never been like, we will dispose of Centennial Pool. Like, that's never been a conversation. I know we got lots of correspondence on that, and I try to make clear to folks that this is about, everything's possible. No matter what you're looking at, there's always a possibility, and you think we have to be real in that. But this is very clear that in your last slide around the scenario one with the possible renovation, and it's very clear that Centennial is part of that conversation. So I just want to dispel the myth, and a lot of correspondence we received said that we will be disposing in the technical word that we use when we're looking at relieving ourselves from property is disposal, which kind of is a tough word to use, but that's just the legal technical. I blame the lawyers for that. But at the end of the day, like, I support us digging into this as deep as possible. And yes, I would love for us to keep Centennial as much as possible. But if we have to dig into it and it's found that other options are better, then we have to have that discussion. I won't be here, but I think it's important that we do. So in that case, the only questions that I have, just wondering, and this is not related to Centennial, it's really related to the Needham. So it was good to have that comparison of different facilities, because it is pretty jarring, the numbers. So, if we're fast forwarding the clock here, going to 2029, or 2029, 2030, that cost is only going to balloon even more. And that's just the nature of things. So I'm just wondering, like, how do we prepare for that? Because I would hate in 2026 that we get a number that says we need to build a $70 million facility, which I don't think council would really support. I could be wrong. So I'm just wondering, like, how can we prepare if we're drawing this out, because Needham really is supposed to be complete now, but we don't have that. So just how to prepare for that part of it. And then the other question is also just around, actually, you know what? You answered it around the scenario one. So really just preparing for how the cost could possibly balloon as we continue to push that out for Needham.
And through the chair to the councillor, that might be a little bit outside of my scope of expertise when it comes to inflation and
yeah, I was looking at this lady over here when I
certainly.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the councillor, I think a couple of things. One, we'll continue to look for opportunities. We applied for funding for Needham. We would continue to look for opportunities for cost sharing with respect to projects such as Needham. And we always do sort of a value engineering as we proceed with projects to make sure that the scope and scale sort of is appropriately sized to available budget. But I think sort of keeping on track with it is probably the key in terms of not letting it push out too far in order to make sure that the costs, costs tend to increase over time. So.
With my couple of seconds, did we get feedback on why we didn't receive the federal funding, or we weren't successful in our application?
We did. We requested feedback, and the first, we applied twice, if memory serves, and the first time we were requested to add additional information on the climate change implications of the building and our net zero efforts and so on, which we did the second time. And I think the second time we didn't get any further feedback on the application, but we'll continue to follow up on that.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I may come back with, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Smith. Next on the board, I have Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, staff, for the work here. This is really what I was expecting and hoping that we would get back is, the start of a planning process to look at the need for a facility that, is, I said when we had the committee in to present to us that, to me, we want to look at all our options, right? It would be foolish to rule something out automatically at the very beginning of the process, but it would also be foolish to commit ourselves wholeheartedly to potential outcomes such as, well, we must get rid of Centennial. That's the only way that we could meet our needs. I mean, one of the things that I hope when the report comes back that would be considered would be, I mean, just given the population growth of the city, how quickly things are growing, by the time we get to cutting the ribbon on a new facility, we might actually be in need of another pool, right? I mean, we're seeing this with fire stations, with libraries, with ice rinks, with all our facilities. So I hope that we can, in the report, we can look at things from that lens. I'm not going to belabor the point. I do have one question that I think was probably useful as well, for members of the public that are here. I just kind of know it on a gut feel. Like, this is not a tomorrow thing by any stretch. Like, realistically, maybe this is a question more for Maggie. 10 years, 5 years, like realistically to go through the planning process, select a site, do planning, get through a council budget, do construction, and then be cutting a ribbon. That's a long process.
Through Madam Chair to the councillor, yes, I mean, typically any kind of a large capital build takes years from sort of conception through to completion. And I would say in this case, we have sort of two almost separate processes. One is this initial study, which is sort of the first steps of a deeper planning process around a 50-meter pool. So that's kind of one part of the process, and then the other piece is around sort of related questions about need for aquatic facilities and that site sort of specifically. So there are still a lot of steps to go in the process. So yeah, I mean, I would hesitate to put a number of years on it, but it's certainly years.
Yeah. I'll do some wild speculation because that's my prerogative. But you think about like the Sportsplex reno, I think that was might have been over 10 years for planning of that major renovation, from the germ of the idea to get through that process to get to the other end. Central Library, 12 years, something like that, 15 years to get to the end of that project. This is not tomorrow. Centennial Pool's not going anywhere anytime soon because we need it. And this new facility is not going to appear overnight. Should we decide that, it's an either or not, this is going to be a while. So, the pool's not going anywhere. People can carry on with their lives, swimming and doing everything that we want them to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Next, I have Councillor Purdy.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thanks for the presentation and for all the correspondence from everyone that we've received, and in particular the Save Centennial Pool folks. I just feel there's something lost when when the communication piece doesn't involve the residents who use the facilities, and I just grateful that we do have the opportunity for public participation in that way, because I think they have a petition with 1,500 people who have signed it. I mean, this is a beloved piece of infrastructure in the heart of our city. So I just want to thank everyone for all of that work being done to fight for something that you believe in so strongly, and have convinced me of the need to have not only a new Canada Games regulation pool built in our, I guess we don't even have one in our province, So it'd be great to be able to host competitions here by building that. And it would seem to me that that would also open up doors for funding from other levels of government, because it would be like a regional infrastructure. I'm curious about the Dalhousie piece, partnering with Dalhousie, and the risk that that would pose in terms of access, and knowing how it hasn't gone so well sometimes with HRCE. When we invest in that, we don't really get the access that I personally think we should have. So how would that work? The Needham renovation, that seems to me a totally separate, even though it was put together in that first motion. I mean, it obviously needs to be done, so that just seems to be a totally separate subject to this. I'm also concerned with not putting anywhere in this motion the consideration of keeping Centennial Pool operational. And just assuming that staff are going to do that, even though you say that you are, and I believe that you are. But what if you all get a new job and other staff come in? And it's not there in writing for direction in 5 years or 6 years? What if there's a turnover? So I'm wondering if you can speak to that, because we do have wording here to include that. I'm just concerned in the future, if it's not a part of the motion, it may be overlooked in the priorities of the direction of staff.
Maggie, I think. Oh, yeah, okay, over here. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor, through the chair to the councillor. I'll address the question about potential partnership first, which is what we've learned through our relationship with HRCE is that strong partnership agreements are required. So that would be something that, if we were going to go down the road with Dalhousie University, which we will explore, it would be a lot of into the fine detail about when do they need, what hours in the day do they need pool access, what hours would it be for our recreational need. That would all get worked out, and all that information, at that point would become public and be part of those partnership arrangements. With respect to Needham being separate, yes, absolutely, that's a separate project. It's already, with facility design and construction. With respect to the continuity of staff, we do actually talk in the report. It's one of the attachments where we kind of list our preliminary analysis. Centennial is there, so similar to the other pools that are there that will be considered. And we are recognized, and I think it came out through the presentation, maybe a little bit stronger than in the staff report, that this is really training and competition, but there's also recreation. And so our pool inventory is doing a lot of heavy hitting for the recreational component right now, and you see that with the wait list for swimming lessons, you see it with the growth. So staff is acutely aware of that. There's another project that I think was discussed a little bit during budget about the community facility master plan scoping and the work that we're doing there with all of our facilities, because we're seeing it across the board, not just with pools, but with playing fields. You're seeing it as councillors with the requests that come in. We're a growing city. It was described as a growth environment that we're in right now, and so we would not look at taking any kind of recreational component of our facilities offline lightly. So I would suggest that I don't think the motion needs to be amended, because it's pretty clear in the documents that we have that that will be looked at.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, I have Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for the presentation. I'm not on CPED normally, so I'm just here out of interest. And you've touched on my question related to Dal, but if we could just dig in a little bit more on that. I'm also concerned about access. If HRM is putting a lot of money into a facility, I think it should be available to everyone as much of the time and as affordably as possible. So I know as soon as we enter into a partnership, there are going to be restrictions on access, and so I'm hoping that that will be really clearly spelled out in the report, so we know, how much access we're getting for the amount of money we're putting into the facility. And I do have concerns about some of the other partnerships that might be possible, because some of our facilities are membership driven, and members get first access, and then the general public if they can't afford a membership, might get access if there's room later on. But that hasn't always panned out very well. So I hope that that's all spelled out when we're discussing partnerships to ensure that we can provide a benefit to the greatest number of people in our communities. And I hope we also work backwards from our population estimates and projections. If this project is going to take 5 to 10 years, perhaps we need to start with our population projection 10 years from now and work backwards in terms of determining locations. But if you could touch on how the partnerships will be detailed for a future council, it probably won't be this council getting the report, correct?
Through the chair to the councillor, that's correct. It will likely not be this council getting the report. That is something we really have to investigate and we have to dig into. So we'll try to make sure that we come back as clear as possible in the future report with this, that comes along with the study, all of these details. And I will also just note, we are very plugged into the work that's going on with regional planning and the growth areas that are happening where population is anticipated, completely integrated with them on those numbers.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So seeing no further speakers on the list, anyone want to call for the question? All right, all those in favor, say aye. All right, that motion passes. And thank you very much for the presentation and to all the speakers who signed up today to talk about this report. With that, I will move on to item 14, motions. We have none. We do not have any in-camera items today. 16, added items. Are there any added items? There are no added items. The date of the next meeting is March 21st, 2024. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.